for you, and for those who, as you understood, it's being recorded. So if people among the audience don't want to have their camera, feel free to switch it off, of course. Again, thank you for being here. We are the Red Social Innovation team, Juliana and myself. So we are part of Red Social Innovation, which is a joint initiative between the French and the Spanish Red Cross, launched 1.5 years ago now. And this is basically a resource center which highlights social innovations coming from diverse actors, so or Red Cross national societies, or social startups, or public entities, private partners, anyone who has an interesting social innovation, good practice. We can say a lot of different words to express, concrete examples that could help us to better work with all the vulnerable people that we're serving. So for a year now, we have been also launching 45-minute events like the one that we're doing today to create a discussion on specific topics. And today it's mental health of older adults, also because we have been working the past 6 months on a report, on a publication about this subject. So we will send you the link in the chat. We're very happy to have work on this subject with the support of the IFRC Psychosocial Reference Center. So thank you for your support, and also Faber Novel, which is a design company which really supported us during this report. And I think Baptiste and maybe Marguerite are in the audience, if I'm not mistaken. So thank you again to both of them for their participation. And then we worked as well with the Sciences Po School here in France and some of their students to create this publication that you can discover over the next days. And of course, some of the participants of today's events were also interviewed in the report, so we're very happy to have them here. And we will briefly introduce them. But Julio, I'll let you take the mic.
Thank you, Camille, for this introduction. The concept of 35 minutes is to be sharp and quick. So I'm glad to introduce very briefly Iya Suzanne Akasha, so Senior Technical Advisor on Mental Health and Psychosocial Support at the Psychosocial Reference Center of the International Federation of the Red Cross and Red Crescent. So Iya will set the framework on the Mental Health International Day and the report. So the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. And I'm happy to be given the title senior. I've struggled for it for years because I'm the oldest one at the center. And actually, so I'm happy and I will cherish that. So on behalf of the Reference Center for Psychosocial Support, allow me to thank you very much for this opportunity for us to sort of be the first speakers, because we think that the report, older adults, mental health, older adults is very important, very timely, and it has really good inspiration for all of us. Now we're going to discuss concerns for national societies today. And national societies are specific or special because we do accompany people over the lifespan. It's not like we only intervene in one end of the life or another, but we are here from beginning to the very end. And one of the things that the report highlights is that we live in a graying world. And I was looking at this figure from the UN, you know, there's 1 billion. And then I was thinking, what is 1 billion? And this is a figure with these many zeros behind, which is a lot of people who are over 60. Most of them living in low and middle income countries. So these are somebody that we will work with in our national societies, because we often work with those who are most in need and who have the greatest need for psychosocial support and mental health. And as we all know, that the UN has declared this a decade of healthy aging. So this is also why the report really comes in with good suggestions. And I'm going to highlight 3. So I think that we're going to work on, or I'm going to stress that we have to work with social support, which is part of mental health and psychosocial support, and also how important it is to be active. And finally, also talk about how we need to be able to be crisis competent and to be able to live through losses. Because I'll get back to that, because the acceleration of change is really going to impact all of us, from young to old, but specifically the older. Now, before I start on my 3 main things, I'm going to say that the word ageism, that I really think the opening in the report is highlighting, is quite important. It goes to how we act, how we feel, and what we think about older people. And before we started this meeting, when Natasha joined, she said very wisely, a lot of older people are not old. I've heard her say that before, because we do act differently. We do act younger, and well, 80 is a new 40, as some say. So you can say that ageism is really quite severe, because it impacts a lot of older people. So we organize our society by age. The Ebbe Johansson, the president of Age Platform, he introduces the concept of ageism, and say that very wisely, we organize society like we were these compartmentalized, and then when we come to older age, it's very stereotyped. So that's part of ageism. That's the stereotypes that we have, and the way that we have prejudices, and the way that we sort of cast people into these categories where they have to behave in a certain way. And I think that many volunteers can help. The fact that we have in many national societies a lot of older aged people, older adults, as volunteers. And if we pair them with younger volunteers, that can help combat this prejudice, and also transmit information and build the intergenerational bonds that we want to foster. So there was one interesting fact that I learned from the report about ageism, and that is that actually about 6 million people with depression that are diagnosed, that can actually be ascribed to ageism. So it's about how people perceive they are being prejudiced against, how they're put into stereotypes, and how they're treated. That can be one part of getting somebody to develop a depression. That's scary. So my main point that I think the report underscores is social support. What is important? Mental health and social support. What is it about? It's about feeling that you're part of something, that you belong, that you can relate. And we should create all these opportunities for social support. So we can, as I said before, we can have young volunteers, we can have older adults work together as volunteers. We can create programs that in program design are intergenerational. So we build the links. There are other examples in the report, housing opportunities where young people live in homes where older people live. They may be given rent-free housing if they then offer 40 hours a month as service, where they help and assist the older adults. There's another fun example, 5 minutes left. Perfect. There's another fun example in the report from Denmark where the wheels, what's it called? It's called Fun on Wheels. originated. And I actually see them in front of my house where I live. I sometimes see them pass. It started out as somebody wanting to go take older residents of a residential home out for rides in a tricycle. So there was somebody biking, and then the older adults would sit in the front and talk and see and have a nice time out. And this has grown. So I think that's a great way, better than medicine, as one participant said, to socialize and to be engaged. The telephone circles that we're going to hear more about today from Natasha in Serbia is another way where people are not only socially engaged because somebody's doing something for them, they're also doing something useful for others. So they themselves use their competencies in calling somebody. Natasha will talk more about it. But I think it's a great way to empower older adults. And they're engaged in meaningful task. And as the report says, they are doing something useful, it's meaningful, and they are enjoying it at the same time. And I think this is one of the key things in mental health and psychosocial support. There needs to be, you need to have this feeling that you're doing something meaningful. Now, and I'm going to mention a very interesting study on how malleable age is. You may have heard of it. It's a bit contested, but there is a study where 70-year-old people were taken into, this was in 79, so they were taken into converted convent, and they were living for a week as if it was 20 years ago. So all these people that came with their canes and shuffled for a week, when they entered the house, there was music from 59, there was food from 59, television programs, books from 59. Everything was as if they were 20 years younger. Guess what? After having been there for a week or 2 weeks, I can't remember, they all had all the vital signs, all the tests, cognitive test, mood, had all improved. So they started by shuffling into the center. When they came the last day, they organized themselves a football match outside. So it's also very important to be active. And that's the next point where I think that, for instance, the Fit for 100, Fit für 100 from Germany is a wonderful example. And so is Remember to Dance, which is a program for people who have dementia, where it's also shown that they improve their mood and their well-being. Finally, I'm going to talk about one thing, and that is, not only do we need to be active, we also need to learn to be crisis competent. We need to learn crisis competencies. And one of the crisis competencies is that as we move along, something we work with in emergencies, that is help people deal with the losses, but also focus on the gains. So if going along all the circles of life, the phases and stages, in every stage, every phase is something that we gain, wisdom, senior titles, and there's something that we lose. And if we help people deal with losses, if we help volunteer to help people deal with losses, help them emotionally to go through it, but also to focus on the positive sides, we can actually achieve a lot. So do I have 1 minute?
Yes, you can conclude.
I can have 1 minute and conclude. So I'm going to show you a picture from a program that I was involved in Pakistan. This is the floods 2010, Swat Valley. And what you see here is a great example of this. So the volunteers in Swat Valley in the community centers, they organized drawing competitions from the old men. And when the old men were drawing, they were just drawing houses or whatever, and they could win prizes. This was very, very culturally correct. They could win prizes. But what happened is that then they started talking about the sons that they had lost to Taliban. So in fact, that was a way that they were then processing the losses so that they could go on and give their full attention to the other children and to the grandchildren that they had, because they were living in these huge communities. So that's an example of how it can be useful. if volunteers are trained also in dealing with these kind of topics when it comes to dealing with older people. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Iya, for this very interesting introduction. And I would also add, for those who are not part of the Red Cross Red Crescent movement, that the IFRC Psychosocial Center is actually working a lot on those issues about mental health, not only for older adults, but for all vulnerable people, of course. We sent you the link of the report in the chat. So some of the initiatives mentioned by Iya, like Fit for 100 or Remember to Dance, are highlighted in the report. So don't hesitate to read it. And now we are going to start to welcome our different speakers, because we have 3 different interventions, 2 from the Red Cross Red Crescent movement, and 1 from a social enterprise. So to start, I will give the mic to Natasha Todorovic. I hope I'm not pronouncing it too badly, and who is a health and care program manager coordinator of COVID-19 Resilient Project at the Red Cross of Serbia, and they developed a very interesting initiative to fight social isolations for older adults. So I'll let her introduce the subject, and please, if you have any questions, write it in the chat, because we will take 10 minutes at the end to create the discussions. Thank you, and Natasha, the mic is yours.
Okay, thank you, Camille. Thank you for the French Red Cross and Spanish Red Cross to invite me to speak about our small project. And thank you to Ea for this introduction, of course. And today is Mental Health Day, but we need to speak more about mental health through all year, because mental health is important to recognize the connection between, it is important to recognize the connection between mental health and physical health, and the well-being has to include both of this dementia. However, it is also important to remember that persons with mental health issues are still often stigmatized in our societies, and we need to work more to help people with a mental health issue. Older persons are a very heterogeneous group. This is, in fact, the most diverse group in the whole population, but it's also true that this period of life is characterized by loss of close persons, loss of friends, spouse, family members, and that's the risk of loneliness, and therefore increases. And we need to think about this. In order to reduce this risk and help to older persons to be included in the society, Red Cross of Serbia helped to establish 32 self-help groups for the older person in 20 municipalities across the country in the previous years. These small informal groups are flexible in structure and operational. They consist of older persons brought together by affiliation, common interest, or some other criteria, and they have regular meetings in which they engage in different activities, advocacy, to help each other, absolutely different activities in local levels. The activity of those self-help groups that are based on the principles of healthy aging could not be continuing, for example, during the COVID-19 lockdown due to the moment restriction. Persons over 65 in Serbia have been prohibited from leaving their homes between April and late May in 2020 by government order. This was the harshest of all epidemiological measures in this period. These measures increased epidemiological safety, but it introduced new problems, especially for older persons with no close relatives or neighbors, but and had a significant effect of their mental health. Many older persons later testified that their perception of own health was significantly worse due to isolation and loneliness. In addition to increase the risk of depression, loneliness, and depression, some of older person isolation meant impossible of granting assistance in case of during health or social need. Because of that, Red Cross of Serbia encouraged and transformation of self-help groups into telephone and app-based cycle. Telephone cycle is a low-tech and time cost-effective solution to check upon the status of older person every day and be already if there is potential in need for some intervention. In practice, the activity is implemented by connection 10 to 15 older persons who are mostly living alone or living with household and may have difficulty to living in their homes. The telephone cycles function like this. The Red Cross volunteer calls the first person in the cycle every day and the same time. Red Cross volunteer are older person. This conversation is kept short. It is daily check-up call on whether this person is well or not. The person confirms they are well, and then that person call next older person to check their peers, and it's closed after 15-20 minutes maximum every day. In cases where a person in the cycle cannot be reached, then Red Cross of Serbia react from the branch. It is important to note that members of the telephone cycles are both beneficiaries and volunteers during the crisis at the same time. Person with a higher technical experience in using smartphone, they are primary volunteers to get others on board, as well as a tutor to their peers on how to use cell phone for Viber, WhatsApp, Skype. However, every person was able to contribute. That's important, to contribute to the other members who might be alone. The transformation of self-help groups in a telephone cycle was a natural way of ensure that more active older person with a history of volunteering in a Red Cross could continue to be active during the lockdown, and that older person is in need of support were not socially excluded and isolation. The effect of mental health of members of both groups were benefit. Older person felt that they are not abandoned and are participating in the society, but also they can get support through their peers if needed, and that they can equal contribute to their peers. And to finish, to conclude, the challenges, loneliness, and strength is solidarity, as you feel good knowing you are being taken care of, but that you are also taking care of someone else in the same time. Someone taking care of you, you are taking care of someone else. And that was most important things. We strengthen the solidarity in our society. Thank you. That's, I think, 5 minutes.
Thank you, Natasha, for your pitch. It reminds us the importance of sharing initiatives to get inspired and to replicate the good practices throughout the movement. And it also highlights how COVID crisis revealed something, this topic, which already existed, but maybe it's a good way to remind its importance. The second pitch will be presented by Ángeles Duran from the Spanish Red Cross, and she works on the mobile telecare solutions. So maybe Ángeles, you can tell us more about how can technology support the autonomy of elderly people.
Okay, thank you, Camille, Anna, and Julio, for hosting us today and for giving us the floor to present our project and tell about our experience. My name is Ángeles Duran, and I work in the Digital Technology Service Department of the Spanish Red Cross, where we develop solutions to help people to be more independent, to live safely, and to remain in their usual environment. One of the most important projects at the moment is mobile teleassistant, which can be our salvation, not only in case of emergency, but also in any situation related to mental health. Talking about mental health, I think, is a taboo because we generally associated it with being crazy, but mental health encompasses many pathologies, many of them transitory. However, mental health includes our emotional, physical, and social well-being. Along our lives, we overcome different situations, but without knowing why, there are others that become complicated and we need help to overcome them. From one day to the next, to start to feel anxiety, afraid, you avoid places and situations that you used to control. What better example I tell you by my own experience. For the moment, I only adult, but in few times I will be an older adult. A year after my mother died, I started to feel uneasy in closed spaces, airplanes, parking, tunnels, any closed place or without windows. I developed claustrophobia as a result of the loss of my mother. But each person develop a different symptomatology. Once I detect a problem, I think it's very important to see that you have a problem and no, whatever. The most important thing is to try to solve it and start therapy with psychology. Now, I do many things that I was unable to do before, some years ago, but there are still some situations that overwhelm me and then I can't control. And my lifeline is mobile teleassistance. There are some times when I compete, for example, at work, I don't like the lead, but always my colleagues who not my fear are always there. However, there are other situations when I'm alone, when I'm driving, for example, and I found a tunnel or there is fog. In these cases, knowing that I'm not alone, just by pressing the mobile teleassistant button, there is always someone on the other side, reduce my anxiety and allows me not to avoid them. I'm always accompanied by a phone. The service offers solutions of the most advanced service on your own mobile, on your small watch. I'm going to compare with you. Wait a moment, please. Can you see?
Yes.
Yes, okay. You can see we have different solutions on a smartwatch in your own mobile. And the service is very easy it's very easy. If you needed something, only you can push the button by accident, distress, or just to tell, you press, and automatically the device activates the hands-free. This emergency is received in the emergency team that they have our personal and medical information, and they have can help you in a way. Also, the service offers geolocation in case you can toll or not get out. And in case of any emergency, they notify your relatives and the emergency service, doctor, police, and fire if it's necessary. In this moment, we are working in other services, not only for people who has a mental. Sorry.
We can hear. We were able to hear you.
No, I'm going to put another. I want to put a video talking about mobile teleassistance accessibility.
Maybe you can just send the link in the chat.
Okay, perfect. Okay, I send the link on the chat.
Perfect.
And sorry, I think it's important to know that the mental health is a problem, but it's a problem that have a solution. There are many people who can help us, and solution as mobile teleassistant that also will can help us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Angeles. And yes, please send the video in the chat, and we will take a few questions at the end for all the speakers and for you as well. Now we have already arrived to the last speech of this session from a social enterprise from the Netherlands, which is called Humanitas Deventer. I'm very happy to introduce Gia. I will not pronounce your name, sorry, because I can't do it. But who is the founder of and director of Humanitas Deventer. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And good afternoon, everybody. My name is Gea Sijpkes, Director of Humanitas in Deventer in the Netherlands. Humanitas is a nursing home with 150 residents. And we wanted, of course, to take good care of our residents. But we found our residents depressed and too much focused on discomfort and pain. And besides of this, there was social isolation amongst the elderly. So we wanted change. We wanted our elderly to have meaningful relations. We want them to have a smile a day, to improve the mental health of our elderly. Well, we knew that quality care was not a differentiator. Every institute should provide quality care as a given. And even the best care in the world cannot solve the problems of aging. Nothing can. By its nature, aging is a process filled with loss. We knew we could not change that process. To become a home where the mental health of our elderly would become priority, we knew we had to improve life at Humanitas. Create a system that celebrates humanity in all its diversity. That began with creating a positive physical environment. There's plenty of evidence that shows that the physical environment can have a major impact on people's overall feeling of well-being. And these changes are easy to realize. We explored small solutions to make the home a more pleasant place for our residents. We use essential oils to eliminate the clinical smell in the building. We use colors and wallpaper to bring the city of Deventer inside. A small and easy step in the right direction, but more had to be done. Our ambition was to become the warmest house in Deventer. The mission kickstarted with a very important move we made by inviting a few students. Mixing elderly with students. The concept cracked the boundaries and did not only change the fate of our organization, but also delivered foundational insights about how we might create a home for elderly when the mental well-being is improved. We invited the students to live amongst the elderly residents for free. They do not pay any rent, but they just have to be a good neighbor. At the very moment the students entered Humanitas, there was a new wave of energy in the building. We discovered the influence of youth in the house. Friends came along. The stories of our elderly changed. Residents complained less about painful knees and elbows. Instead, they gossiped about the students and him having a girlfriend. And was it the same as last week? And was she already staying the night? So today, 6 students live with us. 1 student on each floor of the building, and both groups benefit. The students are socializing with their senior homemates. They develop caring skills. They become familiar with death as a part of life. They learn lifelong lessons. And on the other hand, the elderly, they are proud of their students. Sometimes they are seen as their grandchildren. Some very special friendships are born. And sometimes just the value to have somebody to say hello to in the morning. Most important, they live next door, sharing the little things of life together, being each other's neighbor in every respect. This intergenerational living makes Humanitas a pleasant place for elderly to live, and above all, it improves the mental health and well-being of all residents. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's very, very inspiring initiative. So now we have 5 minutes left for some questions. So I'm going in the chat to see if there are some already. I saw one for Natasha, I think. So, hi Natasha, how did you find people in social isolation to join the informal group telephone cycles? Natasha, if you want to
As I said answer, but very short, with the help of older volunteers. And we in the movement always forgot older volunteers. We need to take care about them more and to learn more from them. Don't forget that, with the help of older volunteers, because self-care groups are they are in a neighborhood, they are in a village, they are small neighboring people who know other people, and because of that we are very lucky to reach these one who are alone and involve them. And may I said something about ageism. We need intergenerational solidarity for the fighting ageism, because in our last research, we have more prejudice about young people than about older people. We need to fight together because both of them are victims of ageism. Young because they are young, old because they are old. And because of that, we need more intergenerational solidarity to fight ageism.
Thank you, Natasha. That's right, and it's good that you reminded the audience. Ageism is a term that defines biased in the way we treat people, either they are older or younger, of course. So we have another questions for.
Can I just add? Sorry. That in mental health and psychosocial support in emergencies, what we do is also we look for those who are the connectors, and these are exactly what Natasha is talking about. Who is the person in the community who always used to bake a cake when somebody new was moving in, or who knew where everybody was? So I think that so the answer is in one way also the connectors, and they are very often older people, because then they have the time and the overview, and they're not so, sorry to say, and that's a prejudice, but they have more awareness of what's going on around them. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we have two questions. Angeles, if you can answer this one, what is the training of people who respond to call from people who have mental health problem or not feeling well?
To whom?
To Angeles, are you still
sorry.
Yeah.
The profiles, yes, the profiles are psychologists. In fact, we now have a new project. The name is Te Acompaña. I'm going to put the direction in the chat. And also, we have a free number for psychological help. And also, there are volunteers in the most of cases psychologists.
Sorry, Camille, are you mute?
Yeah.
Maybe are you
Sorry, yes.
reading the question? Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Anna. Now, I was reading the next questions coming from Pablo, which is for all the speakers, and which is about the link that we could do between climate anxiety and all the crises that we're living, and maybe the experience that can have older adults in dealing with this crisis. This is an important and very interesting subject. And in the French version of the report, there is an editorial which is exactly talking about that. So I'm inviting you to read it. But maybe, I don't know, Gea, if you feel like answering this question, maybe?
Sorry.
Or anyone who wants to take the mic. So the question is basically which link we can do in the context of the climate crisis between older adults and younger people, and maybe, yeah, especially regarding dealing with loss and understanding how rapidly important macro things can change and become crises. So what kind of link, maybe in a really simple way, at Humanitas the Venture, do you sometimes testimony discussions between older people and younger adults about climate crisis or those kind of things? Is this something that you saw or not really? And please, if anyone wants to speak about that, go ahead.
Well, not about climate change that much, but about death or love and the things of life that really matter. They do discuss a lot, the old and the young. And well, just the fact that they meet and that they know each other, you have a face to talk to and not the group of elderly, because that's not an individual or a meaning or a meaningful thing. So I think only by meeting each other, they can discuss severe themes about life. So not only about crisis, but also about the beautiful things of life, like love.
Thank you, yeah.
Okay, may I just a short about climate change?
Please.
Yes, climate change, it's a huge issue, and we are completely blind. We speak about that, but we are still blind. Millions of people will come to different region in the world because their homes and land will be no existing. And that's a huge problem. We need to think about that. How many million people will come to the Europe or United States or in different things? When we speak about climate change, because we speak about older person, climate change is a 40 degrees in Paris, in Belgrade, in Copenhagen, 8 days. It's a climate change too, because it's worse for their health. Climate change is minus 20 degrees in Brussels of 10 days. we need to think about that and to help older persons how to live their lives in dignity with this huge temperature differences. That's just a small to think that climate change is a very hot summer and very cold winter, and we forgot that.
Thank you so much, Nadisha. Yes.
No, I was, and to go on a more practical thing, way of addressing it that that Pablo is addressing. I think that one of the things that young people very often don't realize is how active their parents, grandparents, and others, uncles, have been politically, and all the activities and actions and manifestations they were involved in. So I think that there's also this link where we, who were then doing, you know, who were engaged in the women's lib movement and who were demonstrating and who were doing all these kind of bizarre actions and demonstrating and going on television and occupying things. So I think that there's all this link that you can actually do something, just be reminded that this is how things happen. Look at what is happening in different countries around the world. So I think that we can also support in that way by talking to them, by giving them our examples, and then not interfering or, you know, or support them and also go out on the street when they're demonstrating.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and that was the ending note of this webinar. And so let's speak to other people. Let's create the discussion and yeah, and try to change our perception about aging. Thank you so much to everyone. Yes, please.
Maybe Hannah, you want to say a word?
Yes, thank you, Camille. Julio, just a little bit because I want to highlight that this idea about to use our grandparents such as important resources, not only such as volunteers. I think that is really important when we are talking about edadism or aging or whatever. Because usually we map resources, but we don't map emotions or feelings or histories. And I think that for me, it has been a really nice seat, this question. So thank you to work in that line.
Thank you so much to everyone. Have a nice afternoon or have a nice day, depending on where you are on Earth. And we'll see you at the next 45 minutes webinar.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Ciao.
Thank you. Bye.
Everyone. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Roma. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.